Hi everyone, this is my presentation to my teaching staff at my high school, and we are going to be talking about people first language. So I'm going to go through this whole thing as if I was presenting it to my staff, so just kind of bear with me. I'm not going to show the videos, obviously. If you want to watch those, you can watch those on your own, but I would show them to my staff as a presentation. So just in the sake of time saving, we're just going to skip through that. So the first slide is a really short video. It's just saying what is people first language, and it's really well animated. It's to the point. Most teachers just want to get to the point, and this video does a very good job of defining what is people first language. And then we have some examples as well. So for example, instead of saying disabled or handicapped student, you would say a student with a disability. Instead of saying wheelchair bound student, you'd say student who uses wheelchair. Instead of saying autistic student, you say student with autism. It's a really simple concept, but you're just putting the student first and just saying that that person's still a student. And a lot of people will reverse it and make the disability or accommodation first, such as saying autistic student. And those are things that are commonly used that we don't really notice cause harm, and we're just kind of trained to say it. So you're not actually causing harm in your mind, but for a student with maybe that disability, you are. And like our number one job is to serve students. So if we're doing that and we're doing it in a harmful way, but we don't realize it, then we're not doing our job as a staff. So we need to make sure that when we are saying these things, that we are always putting the student first. And most teachers do that anyway, but it's always good to be conscious of that and to be aware of that. So again, here's another video that we use all the time for the Special Olympics R Word campaign, but it's actually very powerful because people don't realize that people with disabilities still are people. I know it sounds very obvious, but at the same time, words do make a difference. And when we're sitting there talking and we're saying maybe harmful things we don't realize, there's always someone listening. And there's a lot of people with family members who do have maybe a sister or a brother or a mom or a dad, maybe even with a disability, and we don't realize that. So we have to be really conscious of kind of what we say. And it's not just like to do it to try to be politically correct. We're doing it because this is the right thing to do. Such as like I don't call someone with blonde hair, hey blondie, all the time. So those are just things that it's simple in that we do it. We just need to be more aware, especially with students with disabilities, because they're definitely just as important as anybody else, and we just need to realize that. So this is a really cute video, actually. It's got a lot of siblings on here that talk about their siblings with disabilities and how they would feel if someone was to use the R word against them. And I can speak that from my own experience. My little brother Dakota, who's featured here, had Down syndrome, and he passed away a couple years ago when he was just before he went to high school. And it would always bug me when people would say the R word or anything kind of derogatory towards people with disabilities. And we just have become so culturally accepted of using the R word that it's not like they're making fun of him. They're just saying it because it means something else. But people also don't realize that the harm that may cause, not just to the people with disabilities, obviously, but people with maybe family members and people who maybe even have friends with that. So it's really good to kind of put that personal touch on it, not just say that this is just how you should act and leave it there. You should also throw in a little personal touch there and say, this is how it's affected me. And I never viewed my brother as the Down syndrome kid, or he was any different. He was my brother, and like people would just accept him as he was, and that's who he was. And he was definitely a lot better than me. He was definitely better than the rest of my family. We've all admitted that, and it was because really it wasn't a disability in our eyes. It was more that he had a capability of loving others more than anybody else, and that was a pretty cool thing to see. And he would show that every single day. He was very consistent with that, and he was never fake. He was always real. He's the realest person I knew. So that was a cool experience, and it's sad to see that he's not here anymore and spreading that love. But at the same time, he lives through me. He lives through my other brothers. He lives through my mom and my dad. He lives through the rest of the people who knew him, and that's his legacy. And he'll leave more of a legacy than I ever can. And he was on this earth for 14 years, and I'm on it for 27. So he's made more of an impact, and he always will, just because of his attitude and his ability to really love other people. So that's kind of like my personal touch on the whole story. And so before I move on, I was at the Air Force game the other night, and I heard a fan talking about two pretty bad teams and said it was like, and excuse my language, but it was like two retards fighting over a hot dog. And that was pretty offensive to me. I didn't say anything because I'm trying to enjoy the game, but at the same time, it's pretty harmful to hear those things and to say something like that, because I don't think the guy meant to cause harm, any obviously to me, but at the same time, he was, and it was because of his language, and it was because of the way he was doing it, and also just to me means that you're uneducated and that you really just don't understand what's going on. And I think if we can just learn that as a staff, and we can learn that as even people in general, that it just makes us better, and it makes us more educated, it makes us better people, it makes us more consciously aware of what's going on. So it's just like a cool thing to understand that you're a little better than that, like you understand that. But then we reflect that onto our students. So you need to understand that whatever you do, our students are always watching, and they're picking up on you, and whether that be elementary all the way to high school, those kids really reflect on you. And if you show that respect, and you show that discipline and carefulness and consciousness of people with disabilities, they will pick up on it, and they will also kind of adopt it as their own. So you're making a life impact from there on out. So I always like showing data. That's kind of how I go. I like showing data for people. So here's like, what are the chances that you'll actually have a disabled student? And in my school, we have a very, very high special needs population, so maybe different. But according to the U.S. Department of Education, this is their bar graph of just saying, like, this is what you might run into in the education field. And you can see there that over 35% of students have a specific learning disability. So it's almost half your students have some sort of learning disability. And then if you look down, it goes 20% speech or language impairment, 13% other health impairment, and then it goes to autism, 9%, intellectual disability, 6%, so on and so forth. So there's a very, very high chance that you're going to have at least about 5 to 10% of your students, even in a general education classroom, with a disability. So it's very, very important that we understand that, and that we as a staff realize our population. And just seeing those numbers is kind of shocking, because especially in my school, we have 35% minority students, which is a pretty high number for where we're at. But at the same time, it's about the same as anybody with a disability. So we want to make sure that we're taking account into those people as well. Next slide just talks about, as a staff, and how can we encourage people first language. I would probably present this first, and maybe if we're in small groups, let our staff discuss and talk about how can we encourage people first language in our school, because obviously they're all professionals, they're all experienced, they're all educated, they probably already have some great ideas, and so I'd rather take their ideas and use them and see if they come up with anything different, and then I have my own list as well to see if we have any similarities or differences, obviously. So here's kind of what my list is, and then we can always add to this. So educating our students and ourselves about students with disabilities, and that can be done in several different ways. We have this thing called TAP class, which is like our advisory class, and it's about 40 minutes a week where we can just maybe take time as a whole school to have a quick lesson on students with disabilities and just educate our students on what it is to use people first language. Also just to educate them on people with disabilities in general. And of course, you're probably going to have someone in your classroom with a disability, and maybe if they're comfortable enough, they can come up and speak about it. Just depends on what the culture is at your school or your classroom as well. Also, we have Special Olympics, which is a great resource for these kind of things. And we also have partner classes, which integrate our students together. And we do it in art, we do it in PE, we do it in cooking, we do it and a couple other classes like science and social studies. So we are incorporating all that, so students are exposed to that and they do have opportunities, but we want to make sure that the students are aware of those opportunities and that they can take advantage of that the following year, if they're interested, they can join those partner classes. Also, as teachers or as a staff, we just need to study IEPs and 504s and understand our students. And then also, communication with parents and guardians is one of the most effective tools I've ever really used, is because, I mean, who else knows their kid better than their parent or guardian? I mean, they're around them all the time. And there's always little things at work that maybe took years to find out, that maybe you can take advantage of as a teacher or as a staff member at the school. So communication is huge, and actually reaching out to the parent or guardian to see what works and maybe what doesn't work, and making sure that we're doing the best we can to help our students. Also, holding our school accountable. You know, if you hear someone use the R word in the hallway, maybe stopping them and saying, you know, not chew them out or anything, and just take that opportunity as a learning moment and educate that person on maybe what harm that does cause. But really, if you're educating your students and you're holding them accountable, then you'll start to see students hold each other accountable. I think it's so much better to see students hold each other accountable rather than a teacher or principal or assistant principal do that. I think that's much more effective. I think pure accountability is much, much better than anything else you can do as a school. So it was really cool to see that at my old middle school before I went to the high school, was I would see students say certain things in the hallway. Instead of me talking to them, I'd hear a student do it. I'd hear a student pull them aside, and again, they weren't chewing them out. They weren't being disrespectful. They say, "Hey, you know, we don't use that word here, or maybe we can find a different word to use that. Like, let's show some respect." You know, and really that was one of the coolest things as a teacher that I ever saw. So really just holding each other accountable, but also maybe hopefully getting to the students to the point where they can hold each other accountable instead of the teachers doing it all. Also, show respect at all times. I mean, it's honestly just as simple as being polite to each other, and that should be for anybody. It's very simple. You know, the golden rule. That's what we've always taught, but we also have to show it. You as a teacher cannot follow the golden rule on your wall and then not do it yourself, and that includes teachers, and that includes staff members. You know, saying good morning, making eye contact, you know, doing all the little things that make a huge difference, holding the door open for people. I mean, students will pick up on that too, and will really look at you as a role model and see that you're doing those things, and then they will start to mirror those acts as well. And finally, the best thing that as a staff we can do is know our students. Like, get to know them, like listen to them, and take the time to do that. And it's a little extra effort, but I don't know many teachers that don't want to know their students. So it's kind of stating the obvious, but again, just the best way to fight that is to know your students and to know their family, and to get to that point where you know what works for them the best, and to tailor their education and all that. And then end it off with a video that says it's got a mix of kids saying what they would like their teachers to do, and it's a pretty cool little video. So just take time, about 2 minutes again, to watch it. But it's got some advice for teachers, and you have, you know, middle schoolers and elementary schoolers telling their teachers what exactly they want to do. And some of these students do have disabilities, so it's again, getting to know your students, and that's the big key. So that's the end of the slideshow. Obviously, it's about less than 15 minutes, so I would definitely make more time to discuss things and let the teachers communicate. I really, as a teacher, I don't like it when administrators or teachers who have been there forever come up and try to tell us like how to act and how to do. I think it's better to hear it from students. I think it's better to hear it from personal experience, and to tie that in. I think there's a lot of teachers out there that do have, you know, family members or people who are close to them with disabilities, and you just got to communicate that to them and say, you know, this is, maybe let them talk and ask them if they want to talk, instead of just me up there the whole time, because I don't really want to lecture them. Especially as a young teacher, I think that a lot of teachers would be against that. So really, you got to see that as a staff, and some days as a principal, you got to understand that people really just don't want to be talked to. They want to hear the reality. They want to see data. They want to know what they can do about it, and then, you know, see it in action too. So if we can do those things, we're going to make our schools a great place for everybody, including students with disabilities. So thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. Leave any comments if you have questions or advice. Thank you so much. Bye.